Welcome again to another Hoops and Dreams preview show. My name is Brian Fisher, and this is an episode that's previewing Tuesday's QPR Middlesbrough fixture. To help me review the R's last match and then look at that Tuesday's match and also discuss any championship or club news that we come across, I'm joined by my regular partner, George. Welcome to you again, George.
Thank you as always, Brian. Pleasure to be on. Feeling much more positive coming on after the Sunderland game, in fairness, rather than last time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's move straight away on to reviewing Saturday's match, which, for those of you who don't realise, was QPR against Sunderland. After what felt very much like a win when we grinded out a draw against Burnley, everyone was hoping for more of the same against Sunderland, despite the injuries. That said, we were playing the league leaders, so were you optimistic, George?
I was quietly confident in a way because we were playing at home, and for some reason, even after the Portsmouth defeats, I thought it's an important game at home. We could get something out of the game, but you need to look here. And Burnley, I think we went into that game only wanting a point, and it was a brilliant defensive, solid performance. But you go into the Sunderland game, we were much more positive. And even if you're in your top form, you're going to take a draw against both first and second in the league, aren't you? So I'm looking at it more positively than negatively.
Yeah, I think you were there as well, weren't you, for the match?
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
I I mean, you get to see far more than obviously people see on the highlights, and far more than they even get to see with the fixed cameras. Um, was the sending off of Joe Bellingham really a pivotal point in the game, or were QPR already on top?
I think throughout the game it was quite even. I thought, however, second half we started to dominate the game a bit more, and I think if anything, the red card, although initially seems like a positive for us and at Loftus Road, it potentially isn't because it encourages team to sit back. You've seen it with Plymouth at home in a 1-1 draw. It seems like we can't break down any team who has 10 men. So I would have been a slightly more like I didn't think we were going to score after they went down to 10 men. So I would have been a bit more quietly confident if they were coming at us, leaving the space, because I think as the game went on, they would have wanted to win it more and more because you look at the league standings and they're going to think, oh, we can win this game, we can get a 1-0 here. So it would have created more gaps for us. So it was 100% the sending off, but in terms of our performance and how it affected us, I would say it potentially affected us negatively.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the press that I've just seen from the Sunderland side, none of the players think that it wasn't a red card. They all understood why it was, and quite rightly so. Um, I don't know what the manager said, but certainly for sure the players knew full well. And they accept it as part and parcel of the game, and of course that's what it is. It doesn't make it any nicer though when you have to do without a certain player, a key player perhaps, for another three matches. Um, Marti's revised way of playing, if perhaps forced by injuries, when we were against Burnley, achieved a draw. So was this another inspired team selection, do you think, George, and a style of play that suited us against Sunderland?
I think his hands are tied a bit with some of the injuries that we've had, but I said on the last one of these that I think we need to go back to basics, and we've
Yeah.
done that. We've got more solid. We've kept a clean sheet against the top two in the division. So for me, that's a massive positive. Even without Jake Clark-Salter against Sunderland, we looked good at the back. I thought Field settled in well there again. I called for it after I saw him at Crystal Palace. He looked settled there, and I'd much prefer him than Jimmy Dunn there because it just adds that bit of balance, I think, because Dunn just doesn't seem comfortable. Then again, we still have defensive injury problems, and I'm sure we'll get to that later on. But no, I think the way Marty went into this game, it was more attacking than he did against Burnley. As I said earlier, I think he went into Burnley only expecting the point and only wanting the point. And I know he won't admit that, but I think fans were more than satisfied with the 0-0. And I would say the same against Sunderland. It's good. We didn't have a clean sheet this year, and we've got two back to back. So yeah, I'm looking at it much more positively now.
Good. Yeah, I mean the back four of Dunn, Cook, Field, and Ashby. I mean you've got two of them who are playing out of position,
Hmm.
but they were solid throughout. They covered for each other. They were nipping in when required to save the day if need be. Of course, Nardi had to make some great saves as well, which was a big help. And the midfield being made up of Madsen, Morgan, and Varane was for me superb. I mean, ensuring that we often got those all important second balls that we weren't getting before. And up front, we had Smith, Celar, and Chair with even better link-up play and movement. They just lacked an end product in the box. That's the truth of the matter. We just could not get that ball into the goal. Uh, could we have done any better, George, even with 11 Sunderland players on the pitch? And how? Is there anything that he could have done?
I think potentially we could have played the ball a bit quicker. I think we saw it against Plymouth and we saw it against Sunderland. When we're playing against a team with such a low block, we seem to slow our game down. And
Yeah,
it was like there's ways to break down a team. You play it from side to side. You play one touch, two touch football. But it almost seemed like we were giving it out to Chair, who was trying to beat his man. But because they were so far back, if he beat one of them, they just had another four or five who was behind him. So it is really difficult, and we do underestimate how hard it is sometimes to play against 10 men, especially when it's a Sunderland side who have been doing well, who are defensively solid. Um, but no, I think it's tough to say we could have done any better out of the game. Obviously, you mentioned on it, we need to score more goals, and I'll touch on that more later on if we when we talk about Cellar. But no, it's just at the moment potentially a bit more clinical, but apart from that, yeah, it was really difficult.
yeah, I'm with you on that, and I'm not sure, given the injuries, that Marty could have put out a better side than that. I don't think so. Anyway, player of the match for you, George.
See, for me, it was between John. Well, no, I think it's Jonathan Varane. I think he won the most duels in the game. He did since he's come back from his red card. He's had that moment of just he's a completely different player. I said it when he first joined us and when he was first playing, he was kind of dilly-dallying on the ball, was too slow, weren't releasing it. But that game, that part of his game's almost gone. Even yesterday, he was starting to drive with it a bit more, and I'm starting to see why Marty decided to sign him. And I think. No, it's definitely good to see him improve. And I think he's had that 3 games to sit back, watch, and see where he can improve. And I think Marty's potentially done that with Madsen as well. He's given him that 2 or 3 games to sit on the bench, have a look at the game from a different perspective, and see how he can implement the game and impact the game. So, if anything, obviously it weren't great for us in the short term in like his sending off against Blackburn, but for him to have that chance to sit back and see where he can improve and see where he can affect the game. I think it's been positive, and you've seen it ever since he's come back. He's winning everything. He's a dominant force in midfield. So for me, he was man of the match.
Yeah, I'm going to find it hard to disagree with you. I mean, you could almost make a case, though, for anybody who started that match, especially those who were forced to play in a different role or at a higher level, perhaps, such as Morgan. But I do feel that the midfield was where we were strong and we made a difference. There was a huge difference made compared to our previous matches. It was just an extension of what happened with Burnley. We would go in for those second balls. We were getting those second balls. People were looking after each other. They were perhaps both players nearby were going for the same ball. It was all the stuff you wanted to see. And you're right. I do agree that they got slow at times in moving the ball about. We need to learn from other teams. Other teams are faster in reacting to opportunities than we are. Um, right. So yeah, I go with you on Varane for player of the match. No worries about that. But they were all pretty damn good yesterday. Um, okay, this draw against Sunderland leaves QPR 23rd. We haven't moved, but we've got 10 points now. Yep, we finally made double figures. Surely we can gain optimism from goalless draws with two top sides, George.
No, I completely agree with you. I think the fact that we've got 2 clean sheets from not having any this season is a massive, massive positive, and it gives you that foundation. I say if you can defend in this league, you can, yeah, as Marty said, you can pretty much beat anyone. And with how we can defend in the last couple of games, I don't see why we couldn't beat Middlesbrough any games coming up. So no, I take a lot of positives out of the last 2 games, and you look at it, despite drawing 7 games and despite only winning one, we're only 3 or 4 points from a more settled position in the league table. So you need to think about it. This is potentially the worst we've played under Marty, yet we're still not that far away from mid-table. So I'm looking at it more positively, but it needs to be built on, and we need to start turning some of these draws into wins because drawing every game this season isn't going to keep you in the division.
Yeah, I was trying to work this out whether if we drew every game from now on, how we would do.
It would be
We
tight.
get relegated, but it's not much of a watch, is it?
No.
Um, we we saw another 90 minutes really of close team play and team support, which I alluded to earlier on. We also have more chances on goal than Sunderland, and on a good day downhill, could have come away justifiably the winners. That said, Marty must feel frustrated at lack of goals, especially from set plays. One thing I noticed in the warm-ups is that we always test the goalie with shots from in front of the goal, directly in front of the goal. We never do the any testing from the acute angles, and players like Smith and Sato, that's where they're aiming to go from the edges. So yeah, maybe they should think about this as well. Anyway, this brings us down to, I suppose, the stats area. QPR have still not won at home this season. Um, Boro's 13 matches to date have resulted in 5 defeats, 5 wins, and 3 draws. Their start has been better than ours, and they reside 10th on 18 points. Whilst their goal tally is similar, their goal difference is -1 compared to our -8. In their last 4 matches, they've lost, won, drawn, lost. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. Whereas is a good old steady loss and then 3 draws. Um, the top Borough scorer on 4 goals in 8 is Tommy Conway. Sorry, Tommy Conway, I should say. George, as you know, we won't make any predictions till the end of the podcast, but can I just ask for your thoughts on Borough?
I think Borough are a decent side. I think they've got a good manager in Michael Carrick, in my opinion. You saw it last year, and they've got players of quality in their side. You mentioned Conway. I thought he was one of the picks up of the transfer window.
Yeah.
But from what I'm hearing, it wasn't the biggest fee from Bristol City, and he scored 4 goals already this season. He looked promising at Bristol City. So, in my perspective, is why would they get rid of him? In some ways, you could argue they replaced him with Armstrong, and then they've got Finn Azaz as well, who did really well at Plymouth, then signed for Middlesbrough, and at stages has shown his quality, but perhaps hasn't fully kicked on. And then you need to look at last year. They had Emmanuel Latte Laugh near the end of the season was scoring
Mm.
goals for fun. Another one who hasn't kicked on this year. But out of the players who I've just named, like they have so many striking options, and you compare that to us, like they have players on the bench who can be brought on and change the game, and that's why they're a decent team in this division, and that's why they'll probably be top half come the end of the year because they've got the options from the bench to change the game, and perhaps that is our downfall: the recruitment and the lack of players, not the quality of the players who we brought in, just a lack of them. So you need to look at Middlesbrough and think they're great, they're a good side. They'll be well organised by now under Michael Carrick because he's been there for a couple of years. So it'll be a difficult game. I know they lost their last 3-0 to Coventry, but they were down to 10 men. I think for 70 minutes of the game, Hayden Hackney got sent off. So for they seem to be able to play against 10 men Coventry fine. But no, I think it's a game that we can get them at. They're quite a high possession team. I think they're fourth in the division for possession. So, no, yeah, it's a team who are going to be well drilled. They have players of quality, so it's definitely not going to be easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michael Carrick, he likes to get them out there trying to score, and that's quite obvious. And if ever I was thinking of a side that will win 3-2, it probably would be Middlesbrough. Anyway, so head to head since 2015, although you really shouldn't read too much into this, we've met 15 times, with both sides winning 6 of those, and there's been three draws. So it's pretty tight. Someone we all will know from their squad is Seny Dieng. George, any thoughts on the stats and your own checks on the form?
What for their form?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think for them it's been a Although they got more wins than us, it's been quite a steady start to the season for them. I saw some people predicting them to get playoffs, which rightfully so. I think most seasons you see a couple of predictions of them who are going to be up there. So in terms of their start to the season, they won't feel annoyed at it, but they definitely won't be pleased. I think they'll feel quite content. Um, but so yeah, I think they're a team who, as I rightfully said, they just lost 3-0. So if it was any other team apart from QPR, you'd think, oh, we need to get at them. They're going to be low on confidence, but it's QPR at home, and our home form is wow. It's just, I think we're the worst home form throughout the football league for
Might
like
be.
throughout the 92 for the like since I saw this stat. I need to wrap my head around it. It was from the start of the 22-23 season. We've lost the most games at home in the whole football league. So it's yeah, it's just very, very frustrating. And I think for me, I'll sit down the loft end and we just don't score down the loft. So no, hopefully we can turn our home form around. But in terms of them, they'll feel content with the start of the season. They definitely won't be ecstatic.
No, you're right. I mean, we're at home in logical terms against a side higher up, so you'd expect it to be ripe for a draw. Um, However, they were well beaten by Coventry on Saturday, as we said, and we've acquitted ourselves well against both Burnley and Sunderland. This fixture's really up in the air. But you have to hope that this is the match where that elusive home win comes from. Uh, you really do. Okay, we already know that the R's injured players are Morgan Fox, Michael Frey, Jake Clark-Salter, Kenneth Parle, Karamoko Dembele, and on Saturday it looks like Harrison Ashby maybe as well. So how do you think QPR will line up for this match, George, and who will start?
I don't see much of a change compared to Sunderland. I think Santos, he did all right against Sunderland. You can't really
Good.
judge him because they played quite a low block, as I said, so he didn't have much to do. But no, I think Marty will stick with the same midfield three, stick with the
Mm.
same back four that finished the game. The only thing I could potentially see is him putting Smith back on the bench and bring him on as an impact sort of sub, and maybe start Saito or Anderson out there. But apart from that, I don't see much change in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you about Sato. I mean, Smith was. A lot of people are arguing. I think, including West London Sport, was saying that he's the top player. Yeah, and they awarded him a 9, which I thought was a bit extreme. But anyway, um, but I understand why they're saying this. But I think Sato, in his own way, is a real pain in the neck. He really is for opposition, and he's dogged. He's really come along nicely, I think. So yeah, I would be tempted to start him as well. But I think we're stuck with Celar in the middle. And at the back, I think it's got to be either Field or yeah, I guess Field and perhaps it's going to be Santos, who I don't know in that left back position. Santos wasn't as good as Ashby there, but that having said that, I think he did quite well.
Hmm.
Okay, let's move on to any club or championship news we've got. And I guess we better start by addressing the elephant in the room, which is Zan Celar and his lack of goals. I have to say, hand on heart, he was better on Saturday. However, since arriving at the start of the season, he's had a few starts, acting as a sub also for Frey. But when the opportunities have arisen, he hasn't provided any goals. In fact, I'd be hard pressed to think of a meaningful shot up until that one on Saturday that's been made on target. So, George, is there hope for him yet, or has the analytical selection process failed at this time?
I think that I've looked at him and we've had a decent sample size of him now, and I firmly believe he's a confidence player. Like at the start of yesterday's game, he was same as usual. He's kind of hiding behind defenders. He weren't making the runs, but then you saw it second half. I think he got in front of their defender once, did it, got a decent shot off, and from then he looked like a confident player and he put himself about. And I was on a podcast the other day, and someone said on there, the least you can do as a striker is to put yourself about and try. And you saw it with Michael Frey. He's not nowhere near the best quality wise, but he tries and he has a lot of energy. So as long as Sellers trying and trying to get into the right areas, getting himself on the end of crosses, which is a bit of a worry. You saw it. It was the last. I think it was Portsmouth. Smith put in some balls in the box, and he just weren't gambling on it. So potentially that will come as he gets more settled into the division. But I, a quick stat as well. So this season we are 23rd in the league for goals per game. So we've got 0.8 goals per game, which isn't great. However, we're seventh for shots on target.
Yeah,
So if you look at a comparison in that way, it's you can't blame the creativity of chances. I think you need to blame the fact that the forwards or the attacking players aren't putting it in the back of the net. So I really, really hope, for the sake of our recruitment, for the sake of our transfer budget that we spent on him, that Celar comes good. And I think he is a confidence player. Um, so no, hopefully he comes good, and hopefully he can just get a goal that comes off his backside or something like that to get him going.
I thought he was going to get that on Saturday. I'll be honest
Mm,
with you. When Smith put that one across, I thought all he's got to do is hit it with any body part apart from his hands. That's a goal.
mm.
But it just didn't happen for him. It was really sad. Okay. Well, obviously QPR have got other options than Celar, but these are ex-development players at the moment only, in Alfie Lloyd and Ray and Colley. So should we be looking towards them at all? Or are we asking too much of them perhaps to take it on?
I think it is really tough when I've said it so many times, when you go into a season with only two recognised strikers, both of them who hasn't had much championship experience, if any. So you look at Lloyd and Colley, and I think Colley especially, I don't think he's a registered, like, I don't think he's an out and out striker. I think he's more of a creative player behind, and from what I've seen of him, that's where he's best suited. And Lloyd, yes, he puts himself about, and yes, he has more pace than Seller and Frey, and he has that energy. I just don't think he's got the quality to be a championship striker at the moment. And I'm not saying that that might not come. I just think he looks like the player who needs to go out on loan and learn his trade and learn how to score goals. But it's the same again. It's been the same for the last two, three, four, even 4 seasons, where we've had to keep players at the club who you'd like to send out on loan because we don't have the options. So. Yeah, it's difficult to call upon Lloyd and Colley. I would definitely keep starting Seller until he gets that goal or until Frey comes back. But yeah, it's really difficult to call on the likes of Lloyd and Colley, and even Morgan. He's dealt with it really well, and I think he's looked really comfortable in games. But to call on your development squad this much, especially at the start of the season, is yeah, worrying.
Yeah, I have to say I've been really impressed with Morgan. He's come in and he's filled that slot there really well. Fair credit to the guy. So coming back to the striking options, would you go out or expect the club to go out shopping in January?
Yeah, 100%. I would expect the club to bring in one or maybe if not two strikers. I always wanted to go into a season with four strikers. Um, that's just my perception. I think if you don't have strikers who score goals, you can't win games of football. Um, so no, I fully expect the clubs go into January. I think they'll get in one striker, whether that's a loan from a Premier League club, whether that's a player who we've never heard of, someone like Seller, even though that's a risk. I think what the club need is to sign someone who, I know it's not cheap, or just find a way to sign someone who scored goals in this division and knows how to score goals. Like I saw the other day, Bristol City, they turned around their result. They won 2-1, Naki Wells double. He's someone who who just knows how to score in the league. He's nothing special at anything. He's just a goal scorer. So I think that's the sort of player we need. And whether the club can afford that or whether they'll go out and buy that or loan that, it's the question. But I think it is needed. We need another striker in January.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at Naki Wells' goal on Saturday, and he literally put himself between the centre backs and no trouble at all. And that's what you need Seller to be doing. Michael Frey makes himself that's the difference in a way. Michael Frey makes himself a real nuisance.
Mm.
He really is. Even if he hasn't got the ball, he's running them around, he's getting in their way. He is exactly what you want from a striker, an old-fashioned striker, without a doubt. Okay. Dear, oh dear. So rather than relying upon what is obviously raw talent, I'm like you, I'd like to see both Lloyd and Coley go out on loan to clubs that have got a reputation for honing prospects. That way they get something out of it, and so do we. That said, it's only 2 months now to the January transfer window, so I would utilise both of them up until then. Getting a temporary striker, as you were sort of saying, in January, and then aim to bring them back at the end of the season and try and improve them even more during the close season. Okay, let's move on from that before we get too depressed, because we shouldn't be depressed. We should be feeling quite happy at the moment. George, another item I wanted to bring up, even though it was covered by James and Dave earlier on in the week, is to highlight that Marti Cifuentes and Xavi have now been here a year. So we've had sufficient time to judge their impact upon the club. Do you feel it's been a positive one?
100%. I think Marty was exactly the right person that we needed last season. And I think for fans this year, you saw it in our low spell where we were just constantly losing games. Fans saying, "Oh, is it time for Marty to leave?" And
Yep.
quite frankly, I just laugh at them. I would say, think about what we had before Marty was here. Compare Marty and Xavi's style of football compared to Ainsworth's, and it's a completely different ball game. But no, I think ever since they come in, it's been nothing but positive. You look at last year from January, we were third in the form table. I think it was, and potentially I was being a bit optimistic, saying nothing but positive. We have had some spells. You saw it last year around Christmas where we had a spell of not winning in 6, 7 games, and we've had it at the start of this year. But the thing for me is having that stable manager, having that stable coach system, because we went into a season last year or the year before, sorry, of having Bill Critchley and Ainsworth all in one year, and you look how that season went. So, and the best teams like Coventry, they've had Mark Robbins for years now. Having that stable manager, I think it is great. So I think Marty, he's done wonders ever since he'd come in. I think things will turn around this year. I'm positive of that, and I think he's the right man to do it. If I wanted anyone to get us out of this predicament, it'd be Marty. So yeah, I'm extremely positive about what he's done for the club, and yeah.
I mean, when Marty arrived, the squad, the club, and its supporters were at a pretty low confidence level, it has to be said. I mean, he said about working with the talent he had available. Firstly, focusing on the defending, and then he focused upon the novel idea of us actually scoring. By the end of the season, those in the know recognised his achievement. That said, this season has not been more of the same. I think that's what all of us expected, a continuation. But it's rather been like a drop off a cliff for many reasons. Whether this is a result of the players who've come in, perhaps not showing in as neatly as perhaps they expected, or the squad not understanding what Marty wants, as he extended his ideas, I don't know. The recent results and more importantly performances have shown an improvement. There is definitely something there. This must have improved the squad's confidence. And in the past, we've had some dubious managers. I don't think Marty's one of those. Far from it. I still believe in him. Whether he turns out to be one of the great QPR managers, I think only time will tell. And I agree with you. He needs that time. Anyway, finally, before we go any further, let's go on to predictions, if we may. What's your prediction for Tuesday against Middlesbrough, George?
See, we've kept 2 clean sheets in a row, so I think we'll do it again. And we've alluded to it today. We don't score many goals, but I think we'll get the win. So I'm going for a 1-0 QPR win.
Good. Okay, that's good. I honestly believe our squad has achieved 2 great performances. I know there were draws, but they've done all of this without key players against top sides. So surely this is the evening that we'll grab our first home win. I really do hope so. I'm going to be there to see it too. I'm really looking forward to it. All that remains now is for me to thank all of you for watching. Thank George for his analysis and comments as ever. And all of you for supporting Hoops and Dreams and QPR in general. The next fixture will be Leeds away. That will be previewed by James and Dave towards the end of the week. From both George and myself, it's a come on you Rs.
Come on, you arse.
We know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.